boxing. Let's start with that, shall we? Pugilism, prize fighting, the sweet science. There's history here. There is lineage. People have been competing in the square ring since ancient Greece. It's historical. People think boxing is a slugfest for gangsters, thugs, knuckle draggers. They are wrong. This is Olympic. This is a contest of strength. This is a contest of speed. This is a contest of reflexes and endurance and will. This is the business end of the game, right here. These are the working tools. That's why they need protecting. You wrap the hands carefully, not so tight that the skin can't breathe. Loose enough so as not to strangle the movement. It's a feel. It's an art. Centuries in the practice. The ancient Egyptians wrapped the dead in bandage. Preserve the body for the afterlife. You bind the fingers and the knuckles and the wrist together. This is precious cargo. It's fragile, needs careful handling. You look after the tools. The tools will look after you. You need to protect the bones. Even if you're just sparring, even if you're just training, especially if you're sparring or training. That's where the hours are invested. That's where the damage is done. If you don't respect the bones. In and out. Between the knuckles, across the knuckles, over the wrist, over and over. The tape secures the bandage. We use tape, we do not tie knots in bandage. Knots are for the uninitiated, knots are for neophytes. We don't want the bandage coming loose during a bout. That would be bad form. That would be unprofessional. First thing I teach my babies, this. When they wander in here off the street, when they march in here with their attitudes, when they swagger through that door, raw, with their bony bodies and their damage, I teach them to bandage the hands, that's first. Before the footwork, before the punching, I don't let them near the equipment till they can wrap their hands. I don't let them near the top rope. Most of these kids are dead when they walk in off that street. We reanimate them, we preserve them. We're concerned with their protection. When they come to me, they're lost. I direct them. I make them into pharaohs, no less. I give them spells and utterances, messages, instructions. I help them ascend to the heavens. I teach them to fly. I can walk in here first thing, 6 a.m., before the day, before the sun. My nerves can be in the wind. My mind can be muddy, swirling. Every morning, the enemies of my karma, the injuries, the hurts, the regrets, they rise up in me like 7 Satans. More lungs gasping. Punctured are the scars of a 65-year-old war. But as soon as I feel the cotton, my skin, I can breathe. In and out the fingers, across the knuckles, over and over the wrist. This is the first instruction. In and out. Protect the bones. Over and over. A fighter lives and dies in his bones. A broken bone is a cancelled fight. A broken hand means no food on the table, no rent. You keep breaking the bones. You become an early epitaph. The career gets swallowed up by the muddy hole. I've been walking this spinning planet for 7 decades. I still don't feel safe. My father used to say, my father was a boxer, he was a drinker, a fighter, hard man of repute. He used to say to me, there is no life in safe, no danger, no development. Life is too unpredictable for it to be considered in any way safe. 1 minute you can be carrying the whole universe in your arms. The next minute, loss can sweep through your bones like fire. Not even the gods can save you from that. Although you can petition the gods. I have petitioned every god. There is salvation in this game. Be in no doubt about that. But there can be no safety. You will not find safety, not in this room, not in this life, not in this side of the grave. let me tell you things as they are. Despite how ugly it might appear to the untrained eye, despite the violence, there is salvation in the fight game. There is religion. When I walk through that door, I align. It's how my father aligned me. It's how I align my fighters. Some of them come in here broken, bony little creatures full of edge, spilling with aggression, divided against themselves. They don't trust anybody. Why should they? They've been taught from the bottle that no one can be trusted, not even the people they love, especially the people they love. I say to them, this is what I teach. I say to them, when you can trust yourself, you won't need to trust another living soul. When you can find love in yourself, you can find equanimity in all things. I don't talk to them about love. I don't use the language of love. It would be foreign to them, these kids. They wouldn't understand. They don't know what love is. They've never seen it. I let them feel what love is. Through the wraps, through the gloves, through the ritual and the scrimmage and the square ring. They walk into this space, heathens. I gather them up. I capture them. I show them what God is. I give them divinity through the ritual of the gloved hands. I align them. When we protect the bones, we protect the career. What's left for a boxer when he loses his career? The glory of the arena. The factory. The factory is death to a fighter. His heart is crushed by the lathe and the oil, the factory porn. A bouncer, a gangster's heavy. There's no honor in swapping leather in a beer-sticky nightclub carpet. I tried that. There is no joy. And who wants to use his art to guard doors, slap drunks, collect debts from housewives too poor to pay? There's no dignity in intimidation. It's beneath a warrior. A warrior only puts his tools to work against other warriors in the appropriate arena. More than a few end their careers telling punch-drunk tales about the glory days, telling an old story to people who are only interested in the new champion. Not my kids. I don't let that happen to my kids. Maybe you can't save them all. I had a lifetime when these two work. The air is too thin around me. Physical threat. Can't breathe my company. The atmosphere's too rare. There's lineage in these hands. 120 amateur fights, 90 wins. 10 draws. And the memory of those 20 falls is etched in my skin. be in no doubt. I stepped into the ring, the professional ring, on 30 separate occasions. I never went down once for the count. Not once. I never give up. People, they step into my world for a little contact, huh? And they feel my essence. I tread on the mighty. They feel death in my intent, and they walk, and so they fucking should. Huh? Taking me on, but like taking on the whole fucking universe. That's what it's all about. This is your line of fear, huh? Right there. Beyond that rope is life, freedom. It takes courage to slide through the ropes. This is all that stands between a man and his dreams. This is a terror barrier. It stops him from realizing his best potential. The line of ignorance that keeps him trapped in a shitty factory job, having to clock in and clock out day after day for a menial wage. Having to ask if he can mash a tea, or take a piss, or step outside the factory door and breathe the free air. Huh? Fear is what keeps people ordinary. You know why they stay in dead marriages? This. Do you know why they drive a 20-year-old Ford where they only get to the seaside and feel the sand between their toes once a year? Why they live within their means, where they never reach beyond their grasp, where they don't get above their station, where they don't question the social mores, why they're afraid of being a city on a hill, why they hide their light under a bushel, why they eat scraps when they deserve the feast, when they settle for a pittance and they own the fortune of Solomon, why they're dying of thirst, even though they stand before an oasis, because between them and their kingdom is this, the sea of nescience, the line of fear. My kids, they break that line every time they step through the ropes. When you were born, you're no bigger than a boxing glove. You spilled out your mother's body, all arms and legs flailing. Fighting for your breath. A wee frown across your brow and that look of sheer terror, like you were saying, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready. I laughed. I was 45 years old at the time, and you're my first. What do I know about helping a new soul into the world? I'm not sure I'm ready for this myself. Not a sound. You did not cry. I was the first to hold you. It felt like I held the whole universe in my arms. I cut the cord. Me. Your mother, she said She was panicking. She was a panicker, your mother. She said, why isn't he crying? She thought you weren't breathing. I said, he is breathing. He's wriggling like a wee worm. He's fine. He's a fighter. We do not cry in my family. You look cold. I said to the nurse, I said, he looks cold, the boy. She gave me a blanket. I wrapped you, and I wrapped you, and I wrapped you. She said, she laughed. She said, not too tightly, huh? He needs to breathe. I tucked your little chicken arms in, wrapped the blanket around and around, so you were secure. You were safe. I'm given charge of a new soul. It's scary. I've got so much to say to you, kid. So much unsaid. I understand the drink. Let's start with that, shall we? Let's get that out of the way. I understand. Understand the need to cover things. Understand the need to throw a blanket over shadows. I'm not judging. How could I judge? Huh? I can't judge. How could I? A man as weak as me. You only ever saw my best game. I made sure of that. Okay, here we go. I'm boxing in Ireland. This is in my youth. These are just some of the stories I never told you. So many stories. Some of them I'm ashamed of. But perhaps the bad stories are the ones that hold the most instruction. And maybe the stories are too late in the telling. I was going to write it all in a letter. A letter. Never wrote more than a note to the milkman in my whole life. A letter, me. I was going to give you all my learning on a page with pen and ink. I was going to let my life lesson spill. Tell you all, hold nothing back. I could do that from behind a pen. I think I could do that. I went to the stationer's. I said to the girl behind the counter, I want to write a very important letter. I've been remiss. This is what I said to her, a complete stranger in the stationer's in the town. What's the very best pen you sell? What's the best paper you have on your shelves, quality paper? She looked at me. She seemed sad, like she shared my ache. She said, moleskin pads are the ones the professionals use if they want the words to count, and they usually invest in a quality pen. Like Mont Blanc is a good name, but her hesitation hung in the air. I nodded, go on. But if you really want to convey emotion, your face, let them see your face. It says more than any words. My head fell, my eyes spilled. She must have noticed. She was very kind. Or, if it was me, this is what she said, if it was me and for some reason I could not meet face to face, I think she could tell that circumstance might not allow that kind of intimacy. If it was me, I'd put my thoughts on camera. That way you can be sure to convey how you really feel. So, I'm boxing in Ireland. I had a thirst when I was young. When it came to the lash, I was as greedy as the grave. This is in my youth, 30 years ago. You're not the first good man to fall foul of the drink. You won't be the last. I'm in Ireland, near the end of my professional career. Somewhere in the south. County Mayo, I think. Don't remember exactly. Only that it was a small town and I was there for a fight and I'd spent most of my time in the bar. This is when I liked to drink, way back. This is when the drink liked me. Came heavy after every bout. My reward from the glass. Sometimes it came heavy before the bout just to pep me up. And lately it was coming heavy, even if there was no bout at all. Early in the morning, a 4-pack of Breaker to slick the heavy hair of the dog thirst. This particular day, I find myself wandering the streets of a strange city, 6 o'clock in the morning. Not the first time this has happened. That was happening a lot lately. I'm still leathered from the drink from the night before, and the night before, and the night before that. The shake of my flesh is 9 layers deep, and I've got Arctic bones. I'm permanently cold. I'm dragging this lump around like a corpse. Mouth sticky, smacking for another quench. I'm murdered from a 3-day session. I'm stinking of sick and shit, and there's a permanent trail of snot dripping from my nose. I'm sure my liver's dead. If it's not dead, it's definitely mortally wounded. I need medicine. So I find a local doctor. I'm literally sat at his surgery door waiting for him to open. I tell him, a wee man, blood red nose, face like a whore's front door. My kind of a doctor, I'm dying. Can you give me something? Anything? He says, strong Irish accent, but he was very, very kind, understanding. He says, let me take some blood, Ray. He says, I'll give you something in the meantime for the shakes. Let me take some blood, Well, the blood's leaving my body of its own accord anyway. Been pissing pink for a week. Illness is lying heavy at my door, so I think, well, why not? I'm back 2 days later for the results. Well, how are you feeling, Ray? I tell him I'm feeling a wee bit better. The shakes have settled, the Ribina's gone from my piss. Well, he says, there's some good news and there's some bad news. He says, He says, I've been a bit wobbly on the whiskey myself lately. He says, so when I sent your blood for testing, I also sent a sample of my own blood, just to see. He says, your liver is perfectly fine, Ray. You have a reprieve. That's the good news. He says, my liver, on the other hand, is fucked. Standing 8 count. My shot across the bow. I understand the drink. You're not on your own. There but for the grace of God. That was the last time I swallowed a beer. You said to me once, and I think this may be the genesis of all your problems, all the problems I caused you. You said to me, you're never scared, are you? I was arrogant. I was young. I said, I've got no time for fear. I've no time for people who are fearful. You believed me. I've always made a secret of the fact that I am scared. I am full to the brim with fear. I was too afraid to admit it in case. I was afraid that in admitting fear, I would invite it in greater proportions. I denied the fear. I brought my fear into the gym with me. I covered it in bandages and gloves. I disguised my fear with ink. My war paints. And body armor. An inch deep, a yard wide muscle. A forged layer over layer on top of my terror. I guarded my fear with footwork and ring craft, a big right cross, and if it spilled out too much, I'd put it in a Hessian sack and I would drown it in a canal of very strong alcohol. But I didn't look at my fear. I did not admit it. I wish I hadn't lied to you, because you thought I was never afraid. And that made you feel weak when the fear caught you. And it did catch you, as it must. It must catch us all. I taught you to believe that I was not afraid. This is to my shame. And that never allowed you to be afraid. It did not allow you to be human. Fear is a disease. Fear is a contagion. Fear is highly infectious. If you get the fear, you never tell a living soul, because fighters despise fear. Fighters attack fear. You don't admit it. You never show it. That's what my father taught me. That's what I taught you. What I didn't teach you, what I was afraid to teach you, was that everyone is full of fear. Some people just hide it better than others. We're all afraid. I've been in that ring with every permutation of the species, and some were definitely alien. I've gone nose to nose, glove to glove with madmen, murderers, and maniacs, but never once have I met a sane man that was not afraid. Fear knows no color, it knows no creed, it knows no religion or caste. No one is immune. I've boxed Christians have boxed Hindus, Sikhs. I knocked a fella's turban into the third row of the audience once. I knocked the turban clean off his head, and he broke my teeth with a heavy right hand. After a hard 5 rounds, we embraced like 2 brothers. Colour of the skin might be different, but we're all afraid. I've sparred with Muslims, I've fought against Taoists. I had a bout with a Jain once. He was against all forms of violence. He wouldn't tread in the grass if he thought he might harm a worm. He didn't mind break my nose in a Friday night battle in the ABA finals. We're all afraid. Catholics, the Irish. You don't want to fight an Irish Catholic more than once, you know. It's in the blood, the Celtic lineage. Generations of pent-up guilt, these Catholics, you know. And hardy. They knock you to the canvas in the arena, then they drink you under the table after the fight. Even the clergy want to get in on the violence. I fought a priest once. I think he thought I was an ill angel, the Satan. He was trying to kill me. I had to put the head on him in the end. When the referee was on my blind side, my corner says, Jesus, Rafe, you just put the head on a priest. I said, he was trying to kill me. I dropped the head on him, knocked him clean out. I said to my trainer after the fight, never put me in the ring with a man of God again, huh? There's not a lot to learn about fear, only that we all have it. Only that it can be hidden, but it can't be forgone. It can be controlled, but it can't be tamed. If we embrace it, it can be driven outwards like a fuel. If we deny it, it'll drive inwards like a cancer. No one escapes its clammy grasp. It is okay to be afraid. That's the best instruction I've got. That's the essence of my hard pilgrimage. I suppose that's what I really wanted to say to you most of all. It's all right to be afraid. I am afraid. I've always been afraid. I'm afraid now. Afraid that in saying I am afraid, I will lose myself. Afraid that in saying I'm afraid, in saying it, I will lose you. Afraid that in telling you all this, it'll be too late. Too late. I hope not. I petition all the gods. I pray not. Sugar Ray Robinson, the greatest pound-for-pound boxer of all time, 85-0. "69 wins coming by way of knockout, 40 in the first round, turned professional at 19, 121 bouts, 1 loss, 2 draws, held the world title for 5 years. Sugar Ray Robinson. He was scared. Hey, Rocky Graziano, Thomas Rocco Barbella, the Raging Bull, a street fighter. He learned to fight before he could learn to read and write. His dad had him in the ring with his brother every night when he was 3 years old. 3. 67 professional wins, 52 by way of knockout, 10 losses, 6 draws. One of the greatest knockout merchants in the history of the game. Do you know what Graziano did when the New York Mafia bribed him to throw a fight? He threw the fight. Why did he throw the fight? This titan of the square ring, this warrior, he threw the fight because he was afraid, and he cried like a baby afterwards because he was so ashamed. Muhammad Ali, Cassius Marcellus Clay, the greatest. The Louisville Lip, the man that changed the name of boxing forever. Everyone knows Clay. Not many know that before his first bout as an amateur, he was terrified of entering the ring. Jesus of Nazareth, the Christus, the Son of God. You think he wasn't afraid? He was afraid. Take this cup from me. That's what he said in the Garden of Gethsemane, before the crucifixion, before the long walk, before the 12 stations of the cross, from Pilate all the way to the broken hill where they nailed him to the wood. Joshua in the garden, alone. The apostles all asleep. Judas Iscariot plotting his betrayal for a silver coin. Jesus marinating in his terror. Take this cup from me. Arjuna Pandava, son of Kunti, friend of Krishna, the prince of the world. He was separated by his kingdom by a thin ribbon of fear. His freedom was as close as his neck vein. He could see it. It was at the Battle of Kurukshetra, and it was right there. He could smell it. And then, on the edge of the battlefield, in his chariot, boom! In the face of fear, he wobbled and trembled and cried and said, I don't want my kingdom. I renounce my kingdom. I don't want the fight. I don't want the fear. Arjuna was afraid. Muhammad, the Holy Prophet. I spent 2 weeks rooming with a Muslim fighter when I was on the national squad. Wail, he was a poet. He went on to become a politician, but I knew him as a fighter. This was in the amateurs before the professional games used to be. He was a beautiful maniac of a man. I never saw a fighter with more aggression, more courage. I said to him one day, I was curious, I says, how come you don't ever get scared? He laughed. He says, there's no one more afraid than me. No one more afraid than me. That's what he said. He said, I treat every fight like it's the big jihad. The internal battle with myself. He told me a story when the prophet heard the voice of Gabriel in the mountains in Saudi Arabia near Mecca, when he was first given the revelations for the Holy Book. He was so afraid, he wanted to throw himself off the mountain. His fear was so naked, so raw, so concentrated. He thought he was being possessed by a jinn, a devil. You know? He asked his wife, Khadijah, to hide him under a coat. He begged his wife, hide him. He was so afraid, He wanted to die. If it's okay for the Holy Prophet to be afraid, that's what Wahil said to me. It's okay for the Holy Prophet to be afraid. It's okay for me to be afraid. I should have told you all this. I'm telling you all this now. Life is suffering. Life is suffering. We're all afraid, son. We're all afraid to be afraid. All my heroes were scared. My heroes were scared. It's okay for me to be scared. It's okay for you. Tyson, he ran away from the boxing ring when he was a kid. Did you know that? Because he was so afraid. He would sob with fear before a fight. It was only Cus D'Amato. D'Amato, was his trainer. He was like a father to Tyson. It was only Cus D'Amato that turned that kid around. He took him under his wing. He taught him how to channel his fear. Fear, he said, is the friend of exceptional people. You think Tyson was a powerful hitter because of body weight and leverage and projection technique? No. 1 million fighters have got technique. They're falling out the trees. Tyson was powerful because he was scared. He was powerful because he used his fear. He was powerful because D'Amato taught him how to change his perception of fear and uses fear as a fuel. D'Amato didn't want Tyson to get rid of his fear. That would be like chucking away the treasure because you didn't have a chest to hold it in. He didn't tell him to deny fear. That would be stupid. And he didn't tell him to cover his fear in a yard of ale and a pint of tattoo ink. He taught him to make a different shape with his fear. He taught him to channel it in a different direction. He gave him a means of using his fear, and there wasn't a fighter on this blue planet that could compete with Tyson when he was on his best game. Giants expand their courage to facilitate their fear. They forge themselves into conduits of the great energy. They temper themselves, and then they conquer the world. They expand to meet the challenge. That's what I should have taught you, but I didn't. I couldn't. I wouldn't talk about fear because I was stupid. I was stupid. I was scared. I thought that if I spoke to you about fear, I'd open the door to more fear, and I was already struggling to contain the fire running a gauntlet through my veins. It was already crippling me. It was only the drink. I spoke about the drink already. It was only the beer that allowed me to keep a lid on it. And that only worked when my belly was full. The drink and the drugs and the success, just a fool's way of hiding his potential. I called my heavy consumption too much partying. I called my sexual deviations harmless fun. Only a fool would call consumption a party. Only a coward would call betrayal fun. These are things I should have told you. These are things I'm telling you now. Los Angeles. Jimmy Blaze. The great Jimmy Blaze. That was the day. The great adventure. I took you to the Mecca, Los Angeles. You said you wanted to see greatness, you wanted to see talent, you wanted to see class. Blaze trained Julio Frances. He took Dournay to the world title in 8 divisions. I said, I'm going to take you to the Mecca. We turned up at his gym in Los Angeles. From the outside, it looked like any other building in any other city, but for a fighter, this was hallowed ground. I took you there. I wanted you to see the best. I wanted you to experience the elite. You were 16, just left school, still an amateur, but I wanted you to be influenced. So I took you to the Blue Corner boxing gym in West Hollywood, California, USA. We went everywhere together in those days. Everywhere. Your mother said I held you too tightly, but I didn't even intend to take you inside. A photo outside the Blue Corner's enough to expand a kid your age. You remember this? Huh? Do you remember what happened next? I'm taking you the photo and I'm giving you a history lesson. This is a Blue Corner gym. This is the home of Jimmy Blaze. Frances came out of this stable. Dournay walked on the very ground we are standing on. This is the milk and honey of boxing. This is the Holy Land. Suddenly, Blaze is at the door. Blaze is watching us. He says, he's got this thick New York accent, and his face looks as though it's made out of saddle leather. He says, hey kid, you got your kid. He was speaking to you. You looked at me bewildered like, hey, this is a dream. Jimmy Blaze is talking directly to you. Hey, you got any kid? The next thing you know, you're inside the Blue Corner, gloved up, gum shield in your mouth, facing a Golden Gloves champion, and Jimmy Blaze is in your corner. It was... you're just a wee amateur still, but man, you held your own that day. You held your own. The Golden Gloves champion, and Jimmy Blaze was in your corner. All the way back, we talked and we talked and we talked, and I said to you, what did you learn? I said, how do you feel? I said, what did you get from fighting one of the world's best? You know, I don't even remember what you said. I was more excited than you. When we got back to the hotel, you rang your mum in Glasgow. I overheard. He said, you had tears in your eyes. You're still holding a pair of bag gloves that Blaze had given to you as a souvenir. You said to your mother, today was the best day of my life. It was the best day of my life, kid. The best day of my life. And I never told you it was the very best day. Let me tell you about my best fighter. Let me tell you about my very best fighter. You always used to ask me, who is your best fighter ever? Never told you. I'm going to tell you now. As you know, I've had fighters come through this gym for 30 years. Top amateurs, ABA champions, Olympic medalists, holders of every title. But let me tell you about the very best fighter that ever graced this floor. His name was Bomber. Bomber. Named after the great Joe Louis, huh? Joe Louis, the brown bomber, heavyweight champion of the world. Louis was barely literate. They say, his first name so large there was barely room in the paper for his second name. And this is a rumor, but he was afraid to death of his own mother. Can you imagine that? He kept all his amateur fights secret from her. He was afraid she might kick off if she knew he was scrapping. Louis had the best left hook in the history of the game. Huh? 72 fights, 69 wins, 57 by way of KO. Only ever lost 3 bouts in his entire career, and believe me, he fought everyone. Even took on the great 2-ton Tony Galento. Huh? The brown bomber, afraid of no fighter on this earth, afraid to death of his own mother. The Second World War was won by Joe Louis. Do you know that? It's true. I'll tell you a story. Let me tell you a story. See that rope? That's where Louis went over the top. See the canvas? That was his no man's land. The Second World War was won and lost in a boxing ring. No bigger than that. 1930s Yankee Stadium, New York, New York. Joe Louis took on Max Schmeling for the heavyweight title of the world. Clark Gable was in the crowd. Douglas Fairbanks was. These were like big names in the day, important faces. J. Edgar Hoover, he had a ringside seat, the head of the FBI. That's how important this match was. It wasn't just a fight between 2 men of equal weight and experience. It was a contest between the representatives of the United States of America and Nazi Germany. The struggle between democracy and fascism was fought in an arena no bigger than that. Louis knocked him out in the first round. He won the war for the West. You think he wasn't scared? He was scared. So, my best fighter, named after Joe Louis. But, you know that already. Bomber, with me from his first breath. And Bomber, fresh from the cord, no bad habits, a clean slate, and a hunger to learn. And I taught him. Went on to beat the great Robert Darassi. Oh yeah, Bomber. My Bomber. Can you believe that? No one believes that. Darassi didn't believe it either until they picked him up off the canvas in the 10th round. Then there could be no denying it. Nobody beats Darassi, huh? The man was an assassin. He could kill you with a single punch. Hands of stone, they called him. Darassi was a relentless fighter. From the minute the seconds were out, your man was on it, moving forward, closing the ring down, throwing bombs. He'd butt you, he'd knee, he'd hit you with an elbow, he'd bite. He was a Panamanian street fighter. He used to beat up sailors on the beach and arrange match fights when he was 12 years old, for fun. That was his game. He'd throw you over the top rope if you gave him half a chance. He'd land in your head in the audience. Insatiable appetite for violence. He'd cut down the ring the size of a phone box in seconds. Then he'd nail you. Boom! That's what he did to Sugar Ray, and they don't come any slicker than Ray. He cuts the ring down to the size of a hanky, and then boom! He rains in the blows like he's just caught you fucking his bride. The rage. And he didn't stop, not until your legs went, or your chin shattered, or your heart gave out. He wasn't fussy. But my bomber could move. He'd got the footwork. He was a dancer. Bomber slips through the middle rope. He steps into the arena. Darassi's already in his corner, waiting. This fight's supposed to be a formality. Bomber's just some snotty kid from Glasgow nobody's ever heard of. Everyone was saying no contest. They weren't saying that afterwards. The bell goes for round one. Darassi does the usual, he closes the ring down. Or he tries to close the ring down. Bomber slips, he sways, he ducked. No guard, hands down here by his side. I'm in his corner screaming, "Your chin! It's wide open!" Dangerous. Very dangerous, like a man like Darassi, see your chin, but Bomber, he knew what he was doing. He bobbed, he weaved, lead hand parry, reverse hand block. Lean forward, lean back, step forward, step back, slide. He'd cuddle, he'd switch, he'd maul, he'd turn, push away. Darassi couldn't touch him. The frustration, he couldn't lay a glove on him. Couldn't get near. It was like fighting an empty jacket. Then, out of nowhere, and there's only 3 fighters in the world can do this, Bomber was one of them. Crack, crack, crack! Switch! Crack, crack! Turn, crack, weave! Boom! Bombs! From everywhere, bombs from nowhere. Not just your traditional fare, not just your cross, your jab, your uppercut, your hook. The kid was a magician. He pulled punches out the air like cards from a sleeve. He made it up as he went along. Spontaneous, fighting demon, unpredictable. They say he was arrogant. I say, when you knock out Darassi on his home ground, you can afford to be arrogant. Nobody knew what he was going to throw next. He didn't know what he was going to throw next. His punches were like hybrids, these bombs. They were bespoke. They were couture. Part jab, part hook, part uppercut. Something else no one could quite quantify. A little explosion at the end of every punch, like the crack at the end of a whip. Something ineffable. Something beautiful. Every punch was different from the last, and every punch found its target, like they landed with a homing device built in. It was a 10-round bloodbath. And then, after the victory, after the celebration, gone, disappeared. I didn't see you for what? 24 months. A ghost. 2 years. I didn't see you. Then you turned up at the gym one day. At the Blue. 2 years later, here. Walked through that door. I didn't recognize you. You were all skin, all bone, staggering with a drink and 9 layers shaking your flesh, dragging your body around like a corpse. Mouth sticky, smacking for another quench. Mud from a 2-year bender, stinking of desperation. A permanent trail of snot dripping from your nose. I want to train again. I haven't seen you for 2 years. Not a phone call, not a letter, not a kiss my ass. Your mother thinks you must be dead. I want to train again. The gym was full of kids, full of impressionable, fragile minds. And they'd all heard the story about bombing. Of course they had. You were a legend. They'd all seen footage of the Jurassic victory. They all knew who you were. Everyone was watching to see what I'd do, to see how I would respond. And I did not disappoint them. She blamed me, your mother. Of course. Everyone needs someone to tilt the lance at. I was convenient. And I blamed you. Get out my gym. You know where the door is. Get out and don't come back. I said that. I said it to you. I was angry. I was very angry. Oh. I told you to go away. Go. Do not come back. I didn't even give you a chance to explain. What would you have said? That you ran away for 2 years because you were scared? I wouldn't have heard that. We don't do fear where I come from. We despise fear where I come from. Fear is contagious and we attack it. What would you have said? That you cried for a month after the Jurassic fight? You cried because you didn't know how you'd won. You didn't know if you could win again. You were afraid I might push you into one fight too far. One fight too soon, a fight against your will. You cried for a month because your success scared you so much, you felt ashamed. I would not have heard that. To my eternal shame, I would not have heard that. And when I did hear it later from your mother, you kept in touch with your mother. I told her that you were dead to me, that you did not exist. What would you have told me, my bomber? That you buried your fear under alcohol, under a pint glass full, in a backstreet bar, under a dirty needle? Rather a belly full of cheap beer and a field full of brown than tell me that you were scared. Not scared of a Jurassic rematch. Not really. Not scared of the world stage. No. And not afraid of stepping over that top rope. Never that. You were scared of me, kid. You were scared of me. You were scared of telling me you were scared of me. That breaks me I was too busy thinking about myself, about my loss, my shame, about my face, my reputation, my dignity. Afraid that your fear might bleed out and capture me. I was too busy looking at what I missed out on to see your pain. What did I miss out on? I missed out on a title fight. You were due a shot. The win over Darcy pretty much guaranteed you. Look at the title. Who gives a flying fuck about the title? I care about you. All I care about is you. Two years. He told me he wanted to train again. And I told you, you're a ghost to me. I sent you away. My wee boy. And then another 24 months. Another 2 years. 2 years. You did not come back this time. And I did not care. 2 years the day I got the call. Not from you. I got the call from your mother. Bomber is poorly. He's in hospital. Bomber is asking for you. He is dying. I am sat at your bedside, bone of my bone. I hold your hand for 48 hours. Your hand is my hand. I did not let it go. I wanted to hold your hand forever. You can't make up for lost time, but I told you 1,000,000 times how much I loved you, how sorry I was, how when you got right, we were gonna hit the gym again, get a shot again, pick up where we left off again. You're in a coma. I'm not sure if you even knew I was there. The nurse said he might hear you. I'm not ready. I'm not ready to be away from you, my son. My boy. My wee boy. I'm not ready. You were skin and rib at the end. And yellow. Small again. I'm not ready for this. The drink, take the best of you. You look like a baby. Big. My little baby. No bigger. You spilled out of your life the same way as you spilled in. All arms and legs flailing, fighting for life, grasping for breath, a wee frown line across your brow, and that look in your eyes. I'm not ready for this yet, Daddy. I'm not ready for this. I am not ready for this. I am not ready for this. And I am praying to God. I have never prayed to God. I don't even know what God is. But now I am petitioning every God. Please, take this cup from me. Take this cup. I'm 65 years old. You're my first child. You are my only child. What do I know about helping an old soul to leave the world? I'm not ready for this myself. I was the last one to hold you. Your mother said she was panicking. She said, "Why isn't he crying?" We do not cry in my family. We do not cry in my family. We do not. We do not. You looked so cold. I said to the nurse, "He looks cold, the boy. He looks so cold." She knew you'd gone. She gave me a blanket anyway. I wrapped you, and I wrapped you, and I wrapped you. My wee boy, I wrapped you, and I tucked your poor arms in your poor wee chicken arms. I wrapped the blanket around and around, so you were safe, so you felt secure. Not tight, not too tight, not so tight. Ah, 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 ah.